She banged on the door like she owned the place. "Open up, you can't run from this," she yelled. I rushed to the door thinking maybe the mailman had a package or something had gone wrong outside. But it was her, Karen. Hair pulled tight, HOA, badge around her neck like she was the sheriff of the world. She had a clipboard in one hand and a lighter in the other. "I told you no toys on the front lawn. That cheap plastic slide is an eyesore," she snapped. My daughter Ellie, only 5, had just been playing on that slide. She loved it. It was blue and yellow, a little scuffed up, sure, but it was hers. She was proud of it. Said it made the house feel like a playground. Karen kept talking, but I wasn't even hearing her anymore. I just saw her eyes glance over at the toy, then the flame click of the lighter. "You people don't belong in this neighborhood," she muttered. "You don't respect the rules." And before I could move, before I could yell or even breathe, she tossed the lighter. It all happened. So fast. The plastic caught. There was a flash. My baby girl screamed. The flames burst up, too fast, too bright. I threw myself at it, grabbing Ellie, ripping her away as the slide turned into a fireball. I held her. Her little arm was burned, skin red, blistering. She cried not from the pain but from the shock. "Daddy, why'd she do that?" And Karen, she just stood there. "Maybe next time you'll follow the HOA guidelines," she said coldly. I couldn't believe it. I was shaking. Not from fear, but from rage. And still, I stayed calm. Because what she didn't know, what she had no idea about, was that the woman she just attacked with fire, that innocent child, was the daughter of a man she should never have messed with. "You're gonna regret that," I said quietly, dialing a number on my phone. But I didn't call 911. Called someone else. Someone who doesn't show up in a marked cruiser, but in black SUVs. Within 3 minutes, the black SUV pulled up. No sirens, no flashing lights, just cold, clean power. Karen stood there, arms folded, smirking like she had already won. "Oh, great. Now you're calling your cousins or whatever? This is a real neighborhood. You can't just bring anyone here." She didn't even flinch when the man in a black suit stepped out. Tall, silent, no badge on his chest, but you could feel the authority rolling off him like thunder. "Sir, are you and your daughter safe?" he asked me, not even glancing at Karen. I nodded, holding Ellie close. She was still crying, her face buried in my shoulder. Her arm, she needs a medic. The man turned to his earpiece, spoke a few quiet words, and within seconds another SUV pulled in behind him. A woman in a medic uniform jumped out, gently took Ellie from me, and started treating her with such care like she was her own. Karen squinted. "Wait, what is this? What is happening?" Then she looked at the first man again. Something in her face changed. Maybe it was the way he stood. Maybe it was the way the other agents stepped out of the SUVs and surrounded her, not aggressively, just enough to make her feel small. "I asked you a question," the man said, stepping forward now. "Did you or did you not ignite a fire on this man's property while his child was present?" Karen blinked, then scoffed. "This is ridiculous. I am part of the HOA board, and I have every right to enforce regulations. That slide was a violation, and you," she pointed at me, "you people don't even own this home." That's when I saw it, the moment she realized something was off, because the man pulled out a folder, thick, official, stamped. "You're mistaken," he said. "This man not only owns this property, he owns the entire block. The HOA you represent, it falls under his jurisdiction." Karen's mouth dropped open. "That's not possible," she stammered. He doesn't, he's not even—" "You never asked his name, did you?" the agent said coldly. "You just assumed." Karen looked at me, really looked at me for the first time, and then her voice shook for the first time too. Who are you?" I didn't answer, but the agent did. "Former Federal Intelligence, Medal of Honor, land rights specialist, and most importantly, Ellie's father." Karen backed away, her face pale now, but the agents didn't let her move far. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get worse for her, one of the SUVs popped open, and out stepped someone else. Someone she really didn't want to. See? Out came Sheriff Daniels. Not the local cop Karen waved at during her fake patrols, but the real sheriff. The one who actually enforced the law in this county. Broad shoulders, gray at the temples, and eyes that could cut through steel. Everyone in town knew him, respected him, or feared him. Karen's face twisted. Sheriff Daniels, oh thank God. Finally, someone who knows the law. Arrest him. He threatened me, called in fake agents, and Daniels didn't say a word. He just looked at me, then looked down at Ellie's bandaged arm. Then he turned to Karen. You did this? He asked, voice low. Karen opened her mouth, then closed it. I didn't mean to. It was just a plastic slide. I warned him. It was a violation. You threw fire, he said, with a child present. It was symbolic, she snapped. This is about community standards. I was just doing my duty. Daniels pulled something from his pocket, a small flash drive. We've got footage, he said. Multiple angles. Drone, body cam, doorbell cam, hell, even streetlight cam. You were recorded tossing that lighter, saying she didn't belong, saying you'd clean this block up. Karen's face went blank. She turned toward me again, her voice a soft, pathetic plea now. You set me up. I stepped forward, calm, controlled. I protected my daughter. She stumbled back. You can't do this to me. I'm on the HOA board. Daniels raised an eyebrow. Not anymore. And that's when the handcuffs came out. Karen. Simmons, he said, loud and clear. You're under arrest for reckless endangerment, assault with a deadly weapon, child endangerment, and impersonating a public official. No, wait, this is wrong, she cried. You can't arrest me. This is my neighborhood. I made this place what it is. I held Ellie close, gently rocking her as she finally started to calm down. Karen was still screaming when they put her in the back of the SUV. But I didn't look at her, because I wasn't done yet. This wasn't just about what she did today. It was about everything she'd been doing. And now that the sheriff was here, I was going to tell him everything. Sheriff Daniels didn't rush me. He stood there, arms crossed, waiting while the medic finished wrapping Ellie's arm. She was quiet now, leaning into me, watching the flashing lights bounce off the houses. She's okay, the medic said gently. Might need a hospital visit to be sure, but she's a tough little girl. Ellie gave a tiny smile. Then I turned to the sheriff. It wasn't just today, I said. This woman's been targeting us for months. Daniels nodded. Tell me everything. I told him how Karen had slipped fake HOA violation notices under my door, fined me $500 for having my porch light too bright, reported my backyard, barbecue as a hazard, tried to tow my truck when I parked in my own driveway. Even once told Ellie she wasn't allowed to draw chalk on the sidewalk because it was visual pollution. She's been running her own private HOA, I said, making rules that don't exist, threatening other neighbors, especially the ones who don't look like her. Daniels looked over at one of the agents who was already scribbling notes. Why didn't you report this earlier? He asked. I did, twice. But she had friends on the board. They buried the complaints. One of the agents stepped forward. We pulled internal communications from the HOA's email server. She edited meeting minutes, silenced votes, and sent out unauthorized fines under fake approval. It's all documented. Daniels exhaled slowly. So this goes beyond just her. The agent nodded. Way beyond. There's a paper trail. She's been exploiting this neighborhood for personal control, targeting veterans, immigrants, anyone who didn't fall in line. Daniels looked at me. You're not just blowing this up for personal revenge, are you? I shook my head. No, but it's time someone finally stood up. Ellie tugged on my sleeve. Daddy? Can we go home now? I kissed her forehead. Almost, sweetheart. Just one more thing. Because there was still one neighbor who hadn't come outside. One neighbor who always nodded when Karen spoke, and signed every fake notice she handed out. Daniels caught the direction of my glance. House next door? I nodded. That's Karen's sister, I said. Vice president of the HOA, she was in on all of it. Daniels cracked his knuckles. Let's go knock. We walked across the lawn, me, Daniels, and 2 agents flanking us. The porch light next door flicked off the second we stepped onto the driveway. Curtains moved. Someone was definitely watching. Daniels knocked hard. 3 seconds. No answer. He whined, knocked again, louder this time. Linda Simmons, open the door. We need to speak with you. A pause. Then the door creaked open, just a crack. Karen's sister, Linda, stood there in a silk robe, hair curled perfectly even at night. Her eyes were small, calculating. What's this about, Sheriff? She asked, fake concern all over her voice. You already know, he replied. Karen's in custody. We've got evidence of HOA abuse, illegal fines, falsified documents, and arson. Linda didn't even blink at the word arson. Instead, she tried the same trick Karen had. You can't prove I did anything, she said. This is just retaliation. He's upset because we tried to bring order to the neighborhood. Daniels tilted his head. Funny. We just reviewed some interesting emails. You co-signed a violation for his house being too patriotic. Said his American flag was an aggressive symbol. Care to explain that? Linda scoffed. It was a rule. We wanted to maintain a neutral look, uniformity. Except no such rule exists in your bylaws, one of the agents said, holding up a printed copy. You made it up, just like the fire pit violation, the toy ban, the chalk drawing policy. You sent letters signed as HOA legal counsel, I added, using a fake attorney's name. Her jaw tightened. Then she made a mistake. She slammed the door, but it bounced back open, because one of the agents had already wedged his boot into the frame. Daniel stepped in, his voice steel. Ma'am, you can come with us quietly or we can take this to the next level. Your call. Linda hesitated. Then, from behind her, a man's voice echoed down the hallway. Don't say a word, Linda. I'll handle this. Out stepped her husband, Robert Simmons, HOA president, and the man I'd been waiting to expose all along. Because he wasn't just Karen's brother-in-law, he was the one who approved every crooked move she made. And now? He was about to find out that the veteran he thought was just a quiet neighbor had recorded everything. Robert stood tall, shoulders back, trying to radiate the kind of authority that works in board meetings and country clubs. He looked right past me and focused on Sheriff Daniels. I suggest you leave, Sheriff, he said coolly. You're on private property, unless you have a warrant. Daniels didn't even flinch. We don't need a warrant, Mr. Simmons. Not when we have probable cause, multiple victims, and recorded evidence of criminal conspiracy under a civil board's name. Robert's face twitched, just barely. I have lawyers, he said. You're overstepping. This is a misunderstanding. I stepped forward, holding up a small USB drive. Is this a misunderstanding too? You know, the recording where Karen thanks you for letting her run the board like a real sheriff? Or where she jokes about how I'll learn some manners after you freeze my utility access? Robert's mouth opened, but no words came out. You remember that conversation, don't you? I said, the one she had on speakerphone, while I had security cameras rolling. Daniels took the drive, turned to one of the agents. Get this backed up and filed. Linda was backing away now, pale and silent. She knew it was over. And Robert, he finally showed his real face. Do you know who I am? He growled. I built this neighborhood. I brought in the investors. The city consults me for planning advice. I'm the reason this whole block has value. And now you're the reason it's under federal investigation, Daniel shot back. Congratulations. Robert made a lunge, not at me, but at the USB drive. Bad move. The agents were faster. They had him cuffed in under 5 seconds. Linda tried to run, but one stepped into her path. Calm, firm, legal. Ellie peeked from behind my leg. Daddy, is it over now? I knelt beside her, smiled, and wiped her cheek. Almost, said. Just one more thing. Because while they were being led out in cuffs, Karen, Linda, and Robert, I looked down the street at the other houses. Porch lights were turning on. Doors were opening. Neighbors were coming out. People I hadn't seen in weeks, some who'd stopped talking to me, scared of HOA retaliation. They looked at the SUVs, at the arrested board, and then at me. And one by one they started walking over. Because this wasn't just about my family anymore. This was about all of us who'd been silenced. An older man in a wheelchair rolled up first. Mr. Hawkins, Vietnam vet. Karen once told him he couldn't put a ramp on his own front steps because it ruined the aesthetic. Behind him came a young Latina mom, cradling her baby. She'd gotten 3 violation letters for hanging laundry on a line behind her house, where no one could even see it. Then a black couple from 2 houses down. I hadn't seen them smile in months. They all stood quietly for a moment, watching, processing. And then Mr. Hawkins looked at me and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Told you someone needed to knock those snakes off their porch." Laughter rippled through the crowd, not cruel, just relieved. More neighbors came. More stories poured out. She fined me $300 for planting sunflowers. She told my son he couldn't skateboard because it made her dog anxious. She took pictures of my house every day like some kind of stalker. Daniels heard it. All. And with every story, the charges piled up. Not just arson or impersonation, but harassment, fraud, wire tampering, and civil rights violations. Robert's smug expression, gone. Karen was screaming again inside the SUV, demanding to speak to the mayor, as if that would help. But no one was listening to her anymore. They were listening to each other. Neighbors who had avoided one another out of fear, shame, or frustration were now standing shoulder to shoulder. And then Daniel stepped up onto my porch and turned to address the crowd. "Let me be clear," he said. "There will be a full investigation into how this HOA was run. If anyone here was fined, harassed, or threatened illegally, come to the station. Bring your paperwork. We'll make it right." People nodded, cheered. Some even cried. And Ellie, my brave little girl, lifted her bandaged arm and waved. That's when Daniels looked at her and said something I'll never forget. "Don't worry, sweetheart. You helped save this whole neighborhood." That was it. That moment right there. That's when I knew. We weren't just free of Karen. We were free of fear. The next morning, sunlight poured over the neighborhood like a fresh start. Ellie sat on the porch steps, a popsicle in one hand and her stuffed lion in the other. Her burn was healing, slowly but surely. She smiled more now. That smile, man, it made everything worth it. Neighbors were out early, too, trimming hedges, washing cars, laughing, talking, living, without worrying about a fake violation slapped on their door. Someone chalked freedom on the sidewalk in bright blue letters. No one erased it. That afternoon, Daniels came back. This time no lights, no sirens, just him in jeans and a baseball cap, walking up with 2 cups of coffee. "You good?" he asked, handing one to me. I nodded. Better than good. He took a sip, looked around. Never seen this place so alive. It's like someone lifted a weight off everyone's chest. I smiled. They just needed to know they weren't alone. He nodded slowly. "And you, why didn't you ever say who you were before? Why hide it?" I looked down at Ellie, then back at him. "Because titles don't matter when people think you're the problem. I didn't want respect out of fear. I wanted it when it was earned." He chuckled. "Well, you earned it." I knew what he meant, not just for standing up to Karen, but for staying calm when it would have been easier to explode, for protecting my daughter without turning into a monster, for believing, deep down, that the truth would win. And it did. Karen, facing up to 10 years, Robert, outed in the news, stripped of all his real estate licenses. Linda, her name was off every HOA board in the county by sunset the next day. And the HOA itself? Disbanded. Voted out by a landslide of 47 homes to 0. They even asked me to lead the new committee. I said no, because I didn't fight for control. I fought for peace. So I gave them something better. I nominated Mr. Hawkins. The old man rolled up in his chair, tipped his hat, and said, "Guess it's time we let people live again." And just like that, the neighborhood really changed. No more secret rules, no more fake authority. Just neighbors, just families, just freedom. And as I watched Ellie race through the sprinkler in the front yard, laughing like nothing had ever touched her, I knew something deep in my bones. They burned my child's toy, they tried to break me, but they forgot one thing. You don't scare a man who's already faced war, and you never threaten the daughter of a soldier. A week later, the national news showed up. Not because I called them, because someone else did. Someone in the neighborhood, I think. A reporter stood right where Karen once screamed at Ellie, now speaking into a camera with the burned patch of grass behind her, saying words I never thought I'd hear. A suburban father, a military veteran, helped bring down a corrupt HOA syndicate that had controlled and terrorized dozens of families for years. They wanted interviews. They wanted my backstory. They wanted drama. But I didn't give them that. I gave them the truth. She thought she could control people with fear, I told the reporter. But the second you try to hurt a child, you lose the right to be called human. The clip went viral. Veterans groups reached out. I got letters from all over the country, people thanking me, sharing their own HOA horror stories. One note hit hardest. It came from a widow in Texas. They fined me $1,000 for planting a memorial garden for my husband. Your story gave me the courage to fight back. Thank you for reminding me I'm not alone. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a story about Karen, or fake fines, or even what happened to Ellie. This was about power, who holds it and what they do with it. Karen used it to bully. Robert used it to profit. But we used it to protect, to stand. A few days later, Ellie and I stood at the edge of our lawn as a group of kids played on the sidewalk, drawing with chalk, riding bikes, building little ramps. One of the kids asked Ellie, "Want to play?" She looked at me for permission. I smiled. "Go. You're safe." And she ran, arms open, laughing. No one stopped her. No one threatened to call the HOA. No one screamed about rules. Because the rule now was simple. This is our home. Not Karen's. Not Robert's. Ours. And if anyone ever tries to take that away again, well, they'll learn what Karen learned. You mess with the wrong family, you get burned. But this time, only the guilty got scorched. Months passed, and things settled. But the scars Karen left weren't gone overnight. Some neighbors still glanced nervously when they saw new HOA notices, just in case. But the difference now was they talked, they shared stories, they stood together. One afternoon I was fixing the fence when Ellie ran up, clutching a folded paper. "Daddy, look. I made this for you." It was a drawing of our house, surrounded by smiling stick figures holding hands. Above, in big letters, Ellie had written, "Our home, safe and happy." I hugged her tight. That's when my phone buzzed. It was an email from the city council. They'd received complaints about the old HOA board, fraud, harassment, even possible criminal charges. The council wanted to meet with me as a community representative. I looked down at Ellie playing nearby, carefree now, and I realized our fight wasn't just over. It was just beginning. Because protecting freedom takes more than courage. It takes vigilance. And sometimes a little fire to burn away the darkness, but this time, we'd be ready. together. That evening, as the sun dipped low, I stood on our porch watching the neighborhood glow with porch lights and laughter. Ellie sat beside me, holding my hand tight. She looked up and said, "Daddy, do you think Karen will ever come back?" I smiled gently. "Not a chance, sweetheart, because this time we're watching out for each other." A car drove slowly down the street, windows rolled down, neighbors waving and calling greetings. No more fear, no more silence. Just a neighborhood, healed by truth, courage, and a family who refused to back down. And as I squeezed Ellie's hand, I whispered, "We fought for our home, and we won." Because sometimes the darkest fires burn the brightest light. And this light? It's ours, to keep forever.